often.
Well, perfect. Thank you all for coming again. So, we kind of, Rob and I discussed it the other day, or yesterday actually, when I was preparing for today, about going over some more selling points of beer. And, I really thought about changing up today, but I feel, the reason that I can sell beer so well and that certain people can sell beer better than others is because they know the components of beer. Which is why I first started with the difference between lagers and ales, moving into the different beer styles that we have. And I really, in order to know something, I feel like you need to know the inside and out of it, which is why today I really want to focus on one of the main components of beer, and that is hops. Everyone know what hops are? Yes? I didn't know what to say. Yeah, hops are like pretty much the main, like when you're tasting a beer, smelling a beer, and the different things that you taste. The main thing of that is it's directly coming from the hops themselves. You have a little bit of maltiness that you get from beers, the direct flavors that you taste, whether it be citrusy, spicy, earthy, grassy, how it smells, all those can be directly attributed to the different hops. So before we get into it, I kind of want to just give a little brief history about hops. As you can see there, they were first cultivated in the 8th century. So a long, 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 long time ago. Beer, I don't know if you know this, has been around since pretty much yeah. There's a little quote here. It's just been around forever. Just different versions of it. And before hops came into play, they used this ingredient called root, which you see on the next line there. And essentially, that was just a mix of marrow, Yale, and just different seasonings and things like that. And back then, it was a church-type business only. So only churches were the only ones making beer until about the 1500s, when you see there where finally people started getting sick of the root and things like that, and they started reaching out and they discovered hops. Hops are very similar to grapes in the fact that they are a climbing vine that produce little cone-like flowers. Sorry, I don't have a picture of one. I tried to find one, but I wasted too much ink.
What color are the flowers?
Green. But they're going to be shaped like a cone. It's almost look like a little pink pine, or a little pink one, a little green pine cone, something like that. And those, like I said too, they produce a piney, citrus, floral, all those different kinds of flavors. And really, as you see on the next bullet point there, they were first used as a preservative. Go ahead.
They use it as a preservative on long voyages because that's where you get the phrase IPA India Pale Ale, because when they used to transport the hops through the desert, what they would have to do to keep the hops on the inside fresh as they were used, they had to pack more hops on the outside of it, which gives it a more full strength flavor.
And we've gone over, I think we went over that in the first class, exactly. So they discovered that there's an actual antibiotic in hops, actually. And it's those antibiotics that actually preserve the beer, in turn, making the flavor in it. It wasn't just, yes, India, that's where the term came from, but it was more so that as you're leading into the 15th century and things like that, the 16th century is when all these trade routes started to be established. This back and forth, it was almost like a web of different things. Exactly where it came from. And again, too, I wanted to have a picture here. I kind of do have one that we can kind of pass around and take a look at as we're going over this next one, the anatomy of a hop. There's different things, like I said, different flowers. Right there. So at first, you have the strig, which is like the centerpiece for it. It's the main central stem that runs through the bottom and the top of it. And attached to that on the outside are what are called bracts. Now the bracts are going to be the tough outer petals of the hop flower, almost like an armor that protects the inner.
It's because of the white pine cone.
Yeah.
Have you ever found one? Like a pine tree? It's still green. Yeah, but those are hard.
Yep, they're going to be hard, and what they do is they protect the inner side of what are called bracteoles, and those are the smaller inner petals. And the smaller inner petals contain what's called the lupulin gland. Alright, so anyways, so those smaller inner petals are also contained with hundreds of lupulin glands. And what the lupulin glands are, they're sticky, yellow, like globs, they're little gobs Really, really tiny. If you look in there too, you can kind of see. And what those actually are is they carry all the hard resins and the soft resins that you're going to get. There's a rat.
Did you have any more of those?
Yeah, it's a print job number. This one is a defect. I saved 2 pages together. But you can take this one. So what these hard resins and soft resins, the difference between those two, the hard resins contain your alpha and your beta acids. And those alpha and beta acids are really directly responsible for the bitterness.
That was the hard one.
The hard resins, yes. Now, when you're, as we get into a little bit later on, you'll start hearing me refer to something called an AA percentage. And what that is referring to is the alpha acid percentage. Really, a kind of like a scale of measuring the bitterness of beer. The higher the alpha acid percentages, the more beer you get. The more bitter it is. And the beta acids, in turn, those contain oils. So right now, in a hop flower, you're getting acids and you're getting oils. So the acids are or what cause bitterness, and the oils, those are responsible for the aromatics, the aromas, the flavors that you get, rather than bitterness. And I don't know if anyone remembers from last time, I think we briefly talked about how the longer you boil a hop, the more alpha acid is released, and the more bitter beer is going to be. Well, in turn, that directly kind of eliminates the oil. So the longer you boil it, the more bitter, the less aromatic, less flavor you're going to get besides the bitter. The less you boil it, the more flavor, the more aroma you're going to get. It's going to be a little bit less. So yeah. So now we're going to go on there. So is everyone pretty confident? Anyone have any questions about the basic anatomy there of it? It's pretty.
What about the hard resins? What about the soft resins?
The soft resins, those are, like I said, those are oils, things like that. Those are responsible for the aromatics. So you get the bitterness from the hard resins, and you get the aromatics, what the fragrance and smells. So if you ever hear me describe a beer that we have, it's very aromatic. There's different styles of hops that are strictly used as aromatic hops, and some use as strictly bitter hops, which I think is the next category. Yeah, so right there, that leads perfectly right into the types of hops. So your bittering hops. What do you think bittering hops are?
Hops that make it better.
Precise. Spot on with that one. So with having a type of hop that is strictly referred to as a bittering hop, what do you think that's going to do for the alpha acid percentage? You think it's going to be higher or lower? Exactly. It's going to be strictly a higher, like a 9 to 18% kind of rate. These kind of hops, they're added in the very beginning of the boiling process.
High what?
Alpha acid percentage. You're not sitting here when I said it? Alpha acid percentage. That's what you get. That's just kind of how a beer is rated on top of bitterness. But so when you're making a beer that you're strictly trying to get bitterness out of, think of your imperial IPAs. Think of your very, very bitter beers, your American IPAs. They're going to add these kind of bittering hops right at the beginning of the boil. So once the word's ready to boil, they'll boil it up, hops right there. Because the longer you boil it, remember, the more alpha acid percentage you're going to release. It's going to be more bitter beers. These kind of hops are very popular in American style beers. Those West Coast IPAs you make are very popular. The dual use that you see on the next one, kind of a combination of both. You get a little bit of bittering, a little bit of aromatics there. Now, the alpha acid percentage on this is going to be kind of middle run there. I'd say more of a 4 to 8 percentage. And these style of hops you can add really anywhere in between the boiling process. You can add a little bit in the beginning to make it a little bit bitter, then add a little bit more halfway to kind of a little bit more floral, aromatic kind of smell to it. And then the last one there, the aromatics, those are strictly, very mildly bitter, 2 to 4% on the alpha acid percentage. And really you're not going to have much bitterness at all.
So you said the dual use hops has both bitterness and it's there.
Yeah, those, and the fun thing about that is you can do a lot of different combinations when you're making beer with those, because some of them are bitter, some of them are floral, so you can sit there and mix and match. A good example of that, we have that Founders Red Dry for some time. that's nice because it uses a nice bittering hop as well as a nice aromatic hop. So you get a nice smell from it as well as the bitter, and it really just ties in really nice. So the aromatic hops are more based upon flavor and smells rather than bitterness. And actually how humans are really designed is they sense more out of sight and smell rather than taste. As it comes down to it, humans really can only take so much bitterness. That's why when people are drinking IPAs, they can't really pound out 12 IPAs that they can something like Coors Light because they can only take so much bitterness. Have you drank it? But have you ever noticed if you drink more than a few IPAs how it kind of just starts to lose its kind of flavor, your tongue just starts wearing out?
If you
I
let
noticed you can't drink another beer.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't taste anything but the IPA that was drinking before.
Exactly.
those are acids just wear and
Exactly. And that's precisely what it is. Like you said that. So we're going to kind of just move into that, into the characteristics of the hops. So as we already established, you know, it's very similar to grapes as far as how they're grown.
Well, hold on, let me backtrack real quick. The aroma hops, what would be an example of something that uses the aroma hops?
Like a beer?
An example of beer.
Like I just said, the Founder's Red Variety.
Oh, I thought that was dual.
Well, alright, something that's strictly an aroma hop. Think about your less bitter beers. Think about, you know, I don't want to say a Bud Light because it doesn't have very much aromatic. So think about like a pale lager or a pale ale. You're going to have some kind of maltiness in there, but really, the thing you're going to get more of a flavor rather than bitter. Think about any kind of flavor, perhaps brown ales, you know, something like that, where it's not going to be, when you're tasting it, you're not tasting hops right away. The first thing you might taste could be fruity flavor, it could be a nutty flavor, it could be caramely, something like that. Think about any of your, you know, deeper stouts or something like that don't use that many hops. Perhaps a soft drink, a good example. The hops we use are typically going to be, right, well, it's what you're smelling. Think about, remember when we had a Saison ale, the farmhouse ale, we had a couple from New Holland? We described it as, it smells very grassy, earthy. Those style of hops are what you're thinking. Anything that has an earthy kind of grass-like tendency would be considered more of an aromatic because that's also going to come through in the flavor. When you're drinking it, you're not going to taste hop bitterness. You're going to taste more of an earthy, grass-like fruity kind of flavor. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah, try to think of those style of beers. Those kind of beers that use a lot more aromatic hops are really kind of based upon, you know, a lot of English style beers and things like that. Really, the bittering hops are really just kind of something new that are coming. Hops themselves are a fairly new thing when it comes to making beer. Beer's been being made forever, but this, the kind of adding hops and bitters is really something that's coming about in these West Coast IPAs. Those kind of hops that grow out there on the West Coast, the northern West Coast Pacific, those kind of hops are possible to grow anywhere else in that region, which makes those West Coast IPAs very sought after. And that's really kind of what's put America in the world scene of craft beer, are those strict, like really high IPAs. So the characteristic of hops, it kind of just leads exactly what I'm saying with this next point, how they're similar to grapes. Not only do they grow on a vine and produce flowers, but they also change by region, as I kind of just described to you very roughly. You get the German hops out there. They're going to tend to have a little bit more herbal, sometimes a little bit of a minty flavor, as opposed to your English hops, which are going to have a little bit more of a spicy, fruity, kind of earthy flavor, grassy, how I kind of just described.
German beers have a lot of that too, because there's Hacker Shore. That's a really good German.
Sure. Well, and really, there are hundreds of varieties of hops out there, but all of them kind of basically stem from the same group, but it's all depending on how they're grown. Like as you get into these Czech hops are known for being very clean, refined, and have a nice little bit of spiciness to it, very clean. And those kind of hops grow due to the soil. They have this kind of red, orange soil that they get out there that are kind of cause of that. Think about it, you know, around the taps and wine and things like that, where they grow in red soil that kind of have a different flavor. Like, what are they called? The orange ones are those from South Africa, right? the orange soils, and those soils, because of different nutrients and things like that, so add a different, that's why you get different varieties. And now you have the American hops, which are kind of like a hybrid. American hops themselves are kind of all over the map because American brewers do so many things. But most of them, as I said, are going to kind of be piney and resin and bitter kind of flavor. But American brewers now are kind of trying to change the game and push the spectrum. You know, we get those English hops, they're basically all going to be like the same kind of thing. You don't get too many English brewers out there that are making really strong IPAs because they really have the growing potential. Yep.
Why is it like,
That's Frank. Yeah, and yeah, so I kind of skipped over a whole time, so I got reversed there. So when I have under other there, it's kind of just showing how much hops have kind of grown over the last few years here. Is, you know, now those are the kind of the four main ones there, but now they're starting to stretch as far as China. They have some down in New Zealand, and you know, in each different place.
Australia.
Yep. Each different, you know, region, things like that, produces a different variety of beer. Now, there haven't been too many changes as far as new styles of beer. Normally, it's just a lot of take on the beers that are present, you know, your pale ales, things like that. That's probably one of the more popular, just of how the fermentation, not having the log. Kind of going back to the first one I was trying to make similar to grapes there, I kind of skipped over all that. But as we kind of gone over, and I said a bunch of times already, the hops add bitterness to the beer, as well as aroma. This is due to a process called isomerization.
What does that mean? Like, it's just...
Isomer are molecules that split. Come on, chemistry boy, help me out here. They don't split, but it's single. Why don't you explain it to us?
It depends. There are specific types, but essentially they're molecules that have a very similar structure. Like you could have some that they call non-superimposable. So they look, if you put them in a mirror, you know, their chemical makeup with this element here, this element here, all bound around. It's like staring in a mirror, but if you were to put it over the top of it. So it's just they're very similar molecules have the same structure and therefore same chemical makeup and function.
Everyone get that?
How does that exactly occur? Like what?
So
what is the process?
what it is it's when you're boiling the wort. Which does anyone remember what wort is? What is it?
Like a tea,
Sediment.
the
Yeah.
boiling tea kind of.
Right. What it is you make a wort. It's kind of like a very sweet, sugary tea that is left over. And that is made by you taking boiling water, you add a little mesh bag full of grains, and it's all that stuff that's left over afterwards. But what you're doing is you're adding hops to that boiling wort. Because wort itself, straight wort, is very, very sweet, almost too sweet to even enjoy. And it's too much. So that's when they start adding hops to it, it kind of counteracts that. And when you're adding the hops into a boiling water, that releases the alpha acid we talked about. And that's where the isomerization.
It's because, so alpha and beta are the same, they're the same molecule that has two different structures. One is in the alpha position, one is in the beta, so they're isomers of each other.
Right.
So that's where you get this isomerization.
Exactly.
Is determining, you know, if you get more of the alpha form or more of the beta.
And that's determined by how long you boil something.
So when it separates, what is the function? What occurs to the molecular structure once it separates? What
The yeast
is the result?
Sorry.
What
As we go
is
over
it?
the yeast.
The yeast has more surface area it can cover, or?
No, the yeast changes. The yeast is pretty much like an enzyme, and so it'll take something and, you know, pretty much break it down or change its chemical makeup, and so that's what it does with the sugar.
And that's exactly what it's doing. It's rearranging the chemical structure of the alpha.
One more time to refresh my memory. The wort is exactly what? It's leftover.
Got a bunch of stuff.
This sweet, sugary tea-like substance that's left over after boiling.
Boiling.
The
all you're doing when you're making wort in that little grain mesh bag is you're activating starches that in turn the yeast eat, that convert the starch into sugars, which eventually is turned into yeast. Make sense? Right. So, and that's kind of where that term. Okay.
Boiling turns the starch into sugar.
Did I have it flip?
Yeah, and then the yeast turns the sugar into.
So I had flip. So the boiling turns starch, sugar.
The starch is just the plant form of sugar.
Okay.
Or
There we go. Thank you.
So you boil the hop to get the sugars.
You boil the hop to release the alcohol, which counteracts the sweetness that you get from wort. Right. Right there, when you're making wort essentially is just like an alcohol-y, sugary, sweet thing. It's just too much to handle. So that's when you're adding it. You're adding the hops to counteract. And that's kind of where the term, the 8%, the alpha acid, kind of is derived from. Now, the main kind of scale that beers are measured upon are referred to as IBUs. What IBUs stand for are International Bittering Units.
International
Bittering Units. And those can range from 5 all the way to 100. Sometimes, perhaps even more with some experimental beers.
To put it into perspective,
Put it into perspective for us.
a beer like dry hop says the IBU's right on the thing, I believe it's like 66. Or I know that Dirty Bastard, I think has that. That's higher. But a beer like a Budweiser is going to be like 5 or less.
So like a domestic kind of light beer would be in that low range.
And like Hangin' Frank is going to be in 70.
I would say that
It could be 85.
I don't know if it could be that high.
I don't know if it could be that high, but
Just
But generally,
think about a beer like Hop Slam.
Hop Slam is close to 70.
I'd say it's more than that. I'd say it's 90.
to generalize it a little bit more though, an IPA would be higher on the scale, and the domestic light beer would be lower.
Domestic light beer is nothing.
What is like one? What is their unit based on?
Like what is an IBU?
Yeah, what is one IBU?
It's 1 part per million of alpha acid.
Per million?
1 part per million. Should have seen this chapter I was reading about this today. I had to reread the whole friggin' section of it. What did this just tell me? 1 part per million. I was starting to read about the gravity scale and things like that. You know, the gravity isn't strictly taking a measurement of the wort and comparing it to the same amount of weight of water.
Specific gravity?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that comes up with.
So 1 IBU is
1 part per million. 1 alpha acid part per million.
Now, do people actually pay attention to that and like, meaning, let's say we have a new panel that somebody who really likes beer has never heard of, would they ever actually, what's the IBU?
Most of them do know that.
Well,
Talk to a lot of people who know that.
it depends on, it all depends on who the person is. If you're going to get a beer geek in here that's never had an IPA before, they could be interested in it. You know, it's not something that,
It's usually people who are crafting their own beers around here.
I wouldn't really expect any of you to know, I mean, because I don't even know. You know, and I read about the beers that I have religiously, because I want to make sure I know about them. And a lot of times until, unless you know who makes it, you already know it, because it doesn't take a bottle. You'd have to go to some kind of website or some kind of rating system strictly for those IBUs to figure out, when it's gone, for testing or it's gone in like a competition and actually see
I know a lot of people who focus on that, who craft their own beers around here, just for the facilities. That's all the people who make their own beers around here.
Yeah.
And especially throughout the winter. I mean, you can order the stuff online. And that's usually the only people who I know who know about it.
Is it safe to say that the higher the IBU, just the more strong and potent the beer is?
Strong in what way?
Well, I mean, would it be just strong bitterness?
Yeah. doesn't really add anything to the alcohol percentage. But right now we're talking down. Hops don't do anything to them. People think that, but that's not necessarily. Hops are strictly just a bittering flavor additive. Don't do anything to the alcohol percentage. So, I'll kind of go through the process of actually adding the hops to the beer itself. Kind of as we already discussed.
Well, real quick though, did you go over this third part of the characteristics of hops, the AA percentage, like?
That's the alpha acid percentage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the hard resins and soft resins above there. The alpha and beta are responsible for beer bitterness and aromatic, like the soft resins would be the aromatic and hard resins would be the bitterness.
So this AA percentage directly relates to
It's the
the
same thing.
Alpha
Alpha acid percentage.
Alpha acid percentage.
Like I said, when you remember we talked about the bittering hops and things like that, it's going to have a high AA percentage, 9 to 18, the dual 4 to 8.
So hops are the natural antibiotic.
That's what, yeah, there's a natural antibiotic in hops themselves that preserve the beer, which is why I was able to make those drinks across the country and through.
For themselves.
No, bacteria.
Yeah.
Your biggest fear in having beer is contamination from bacteria. Because you're building something, a liquid that's very susceptible to contamination. And that's why you talk to anyone who brews their own beer, they only use stainless steel.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of alcohol everywhere because they're always sanitizing things.
So how would you characterize a higher AA percentage, like as far as
Bitter.
bitter? So it kind of relates to the IBU then too.
They're essentially kind of one and the same. Now, the alpha acid percentage is kind of it's more like a chemical way to look at beers, as to where the IBUs are strictly flavor, bitterness.
It's just a measuring of
Right. The alpha acid percentage is like a chemical way. For people that are really into the geeky side of how beer is measured, people are curious about us. Yeah, essentially it's the same thing. The higher the AA percentage, the more bitter beer is going to be, which is going to have a higher IBU rating, and vice versa. Exactly. Now, I'm sure there's subtleties in that. Someone will be like, well, actually, there's a difference of it, but we're not going to get into all that. I don't know yet. So I'll find out. Exactly. You want to know what Poindexter?
You know too much.
Sit on some fingers.
Maybe they know down there in the street club, bud.
That's it. So, getting to the process of adding the hops, which a lot of brewers and things like that, hops are the little babies. They love them. And one of the first points of age, you can add hops at any stage that you want. But the very first stage you can add is once the brew's in the kettle and things like that, you're ready to boil it. You bring that wort up to a boil, and then you can add hops then, or you can add them later, you can add them at the end, all depending on whatever flavor you would like to achieve.
Say that
again?
Did you add them in the very beginning?
You can add them right when you start. Think about, you remember when we said about boiling hops, what happens to it, the longer you do it, what happens? Do you remember what I said?
Oh, the more,
The longer you boil it, the more acid release, the more bitter the beer is going to be. So we're looking to
Stop there.
because we'll think about what we said. Remember when you asked me what the high AA percentage, what does that result in? You answered it for me. What was it? Exactly. So the longer you're going to boil a beer, the longer you boil the hop, the more bitter it's going to be. A good example that I was going to try to find but didn't have all three of them when I went to the store was a brewery on Delaware called Dogfish. They make an IPA, the same style, but the only thing they change in it is how long they boil the hops with. It's 60-minute, 90-minute, and a 120-minute IPA. Yeah. It's and I've actually had the liberty of tasting all three of these beers. I want to get all three so we can taste them together, but if we ever get a chance to taste all three at once, we should really try them out, because, well, yeah, just because the one is boiled for 60 minutes, the one's boiled for 90, as the others.
Was it like a profound taste of it?
Yeah, the bitterness that you get from it is that much. The 90 is that much more bitter than the 60, and the 120 is that much more bitter than both the 60 and the 90, just for the duration that they boil it. And a lot of breweries and things like that will play around with it, and that's why it's so fun to boil. Because you can add, all right, I'm going to add one this you could add one at 50 minutes and then do the same beer but add hops at 45 minutes. And just the different flavors you get from the extra 5 minutes can be dramatic. Not just from the bitterness, but if you get a little less bitter, you can have more of a hoppy flavor that comes through. It's fun. There's different, and that goes back to the different variety of hops, the types, the bitter and dual use and aromatics. You add those at different times, you're going to get different flavors.
So the sooner you add it, the more bitter it will be.
Well, it's just because you're boiling it.
That's what
Now, if you're going for strictly one of those sizing kind of beers, the earthy kind of beers, you're going to add those towards the end because you're looking more for a hop aroma rather than a bitter. You're looking more for a hop flavor.
You can grasp the bottom. You smell the aroma like it's powerful, but then you drink it and it's not as bitter as you
Right.
imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Like our dry hop, that's a really good beer.
Yeah.
Undersold beer, quite often. There's dry hop pale ale.
Right. Does anyone, do people know what the dry hop is when someone does dry hop ale? So that's really essentially after the fermentation is done. After everything's done, you're going to throw the hops in there. Just let it ferment in the hops.
So you're not boiling it.
Correct.
So it just kind of soaks it.
Yep. And that's going to bring out the pure hop flavor from it. Now, depending on whatever hop variety you use, it could be different flavor. Like I said, those Czech hops, one of the popular ones is Saz, S-A-Z. Those Czech hops are going to have a nice, spicy, clean, kind of refined flavor, as opposed to the English ones, which might have a more fruity, grassy flavor, as opposed to maybe the American West Coast hops that are going to be more bitter, piney, resiny. So you can add any different kind, or you can add a combination. You can do one of those, two of those, or two of those and one of those. The different flavors you can get are amazing. And these dry hop beers, I was trying to look to getting more differentiating styles so you can really experience some of all these. But really the hops in these kind of beers are going to be up front and center. You want to really just taste the hop, or taste the beer for the hop flavor itself, not so much bitterness. You're going to look for those kind of beers.
You said those are added after?
After it's all done, yep. After it's sitting in the cask, serving cask, whatever you want to put it in.
Still warm.
It's cool, yeah, it's not boiled.
So-
Because when you boil it, it's going to release the acid. And strictly, let's put a hop in there. I'm trying to think of something to compare to, maybe, I don't know, maybe just putting like a lemon or something.
Well, how would they get rid of that? Do they strain it afterwards after they let it soak a certain amount of time or something?
Like adding cloves to like your ham, you can cook it with it on it, but you take them out.
That's a good example. Yeah, put it in bay leaf in soup.
What else? Admiral Bailey.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said that boiling longer releases more alpha acids, right? Does the boiling itself convert from beta to alpha? Is that what's
What it
going
does
on?
is it
Or-
eliminates the base.
Okay, so the betas are
Right.
Because the oils get cooked off.
Because you might be better at this chemistry part of it.
When
Well, I
you
think
start
it-
boiling it, Aaron,
no, I
you
understand.
have more betas out there, and then you continue, and then it'll get rid
But
of it.
my question is the boiling destroying the betas, or is it converting the betas to alpha?
Converted.
Okay.
It's got
So it's got to be, it's
Because-
called isomerization, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that's what,
Because if you got to think too, even in the high IPAs, you still get floral, but all you're smelling is hot bitterness rather
Right.
than actual distinct flavors.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So it converts. Another different way of adding a hop flavor to a beer is using a tool called a hop back. What that is, a hop back.
Hot back.
Hop back. Hop back. Essentially what this is like a tray or a cup, I'm not exactly sure on what it is, but you load that up with hops. And what you do is as soon as the wort is done boiling and you're converting it to the cask to chill, you directly just pour it through this little pile of hops.
Before the wort?
Right, so you're not letting it, the hot wort that was boiling, you just pour it right through. What that does, it's just going to add a little bit of flavor. You're not soaking it in there, but it's going to just add another distinct flavor.
Now, real quick, I want to add, after just learning these things, you'd think it would be a lot easier on us at this table to present this knowledge to a customer when you are going through the menu and you want to suggest these beers, like now we know what dry hopping is, and we do have that dry hop beer here. And, you know, we do have these bitter beers like Hanging Frank. You can start talking about it's got a higher IBU when you announce it. How's this going to taste? Well, it's got a high IBU content, so it's going to be more bitter. I mean, these are things that help me out in selling my selling points. And it's, you come into the conversations with people so gracefully that they don't even care about the price. They just want to hear more about what you have to say while they drink the beer that you're suggesting.
Just that Jason wrote her up too. Really about it. It might be hanging out back in the building.
So, an example of a beer that is used, that hopback is used, would be what then?
I don't know. I don't know one precise off the top of my head, an example of a beer if that's what you're looking for. Like I don't know, that's just a style or a different way of adding a hop flavor to a beer. As far as a specific example, I don't know. I'm not sure. Sorry, I can't answer that.
It just helps me to know,
Sure.
you know, examples.
Sure, yeah. And I'm sorry, I don't
No,
know.
that's fine. That's what Google's for.
Google. Ask Jeeves. He's a pretty smart cat. If he's still around.
It's not that confusing, so great.
Yeah, he's still around. He didn't retire?
Now something I tried to make a copy of for you guys, but it didn't really come out here. But I've got this nifty little chart, which I'll keep on. I'll play with it and make a copy of each page and display it together. But if you kind of just want to look and pass around, it's a nice little scale that I can hang up somewhere around the city park, somewhere around the restaurant that actually has, you know, what style of hops are, you know, more aromatic, what bitter, some dual use. And like, I don't expect you all to just know the actual distinct variety of hops. You know, like, oh, that beer uses, you know, Cascade hops, or that one uses Simcoe hops. Yeah, but there's not as many grapes, I don't think, as there. Oh, maybe there's.
I mean, it doesn't have base language.
Yeah. Just as far as region, I mean, when you're looking at an IPA, there's a great chance that using the West Coast kind of hops. Simcoe is pretty new enough and coming with that in a lot of beers. Or you can have your noble hops out of Europe, which the noble hops are known for just, they're kind of really.
So these are types of beers?
Those are types of hops.
Those are types of hops.
Yeah. And your noble hops are your Staz. What were they again? Primo Staz.
The German one would be
Huttinger?
yeah.
Or is that Tettinger? Kettering.
Outline and
And there's another one that starts with an H.
Google them up real quick and let us know right now, because that should be
Certainly.
hot.
But yeah, it's really, so I'm not looking, the point of it was I'm not trying to make you,
But the noble hops are like, you know, you get that Samuel Adams came out with the noble pills. The noble, so those are all the original Pilsner hops.
yeah.
That's the grandfathers of all the other subclasses of hops you can grow. Crossbreed.
And as Primo was kind of hinting towards when we get to next week, you know, we're going to really focus on selling points of beer. You know, and I thought about it, and when I was first saying, you know, when we started this, is I feel like in order to really sell something, you need to know about it. You really know it intimately. And I'm not expecting any of you to be experts by this by any means, but it's just have a basic knowledge to be able, you know, if someone asks about a beer. You know, someone asks me about wine, I'm not an expert, but I'm learning enough where I can sit there and I can discuss it.
And you can
that's
tell the
really,
customer, I don't know much, but I know these facts.
and when you're selling a beer,
Robin showed me a chart of Christmas sales that she started doing this wine training stuff, and it is a phenomenal difference.
right, and you think, yes, she's gaining knowledge, but it's also, there's a certain,
Hey, Robin, can you do this? Because I can't get into the...
exactly, and I
The
might
thing
have
is
a
locked.
disadvantage, well, I actually do have a disadvantage, but especially when I'm selling beer because I order all the beer. I have a disadvantage. But more than that, it's about, you know, you come to this class and you learn these basic things. You know, I don't expect you to remember every single thing that we have. Like, do you want to know what to say? That beer is more bitter because the IBUs are higher. Or
This is simple points are good, but if you want to get into it, start learning it, and if you get somebody, one of those geeks, who are going to spend top dollar on one of our top beers, I mean, a lot of people will buy it just simply because the stuff sells itself, but upscaling is the best part about our job, is that we're capable of doing that anytime. And making more money.
Well, think about 2.5 those $24, $25 beers that I was like, I'm not going to be able to sell that. The reason I can sell them is just because I know about it, and I stress that to whoever my guest is. Like, why don't I like this?
Well, it's great. The last time you sold one of those bottles, the guy said, well, what the heck is that? And Matt came out and told him exactly what it is, and the guy bought 2 bottles. Maybe you saw that.
Well, one beer and one to go. I told them how to make it, style, trade, what to look for when you're tasting it, the flavors, the smells of it, the uniqueness of it. Yes, Susan.
I have one geeky point.
One geeky point.
One geeky point. When you're boiling the hops, you're not really converting the beta to the alpha, because if what you're pointing at is that the beta is the oils, when you boil, your oils evaporate.
Right.
So you're not actually converting it, you're just getting rid of the beta property, and all that's left over is the alpha, which is in the actual flour that stays in the...
I don't know if that's true, otherwise they wouldn't call it isomerization.
You're saying
The
that...
whole process of isomerization is converting from one form into the other.
So you're
So
saying the
there would-
isomerization is actually converting a beta to an alpha?
That's what that process is. So if that's going on, that's what it has to be.
Okay.
If it's not isomerization, then you could be right. It could just be the oils are boiling off. But I'd have to look into it.
It's isomerization. I've read 3 books. That's all I know about it.
Okay.
I've got so much random. I've been reading about this for the last week for my test tomorrow.
Oh, is it tomorrow?
I honestly don't know if I can read any more about beer. Pretty sick of it. I'm not.
What's your first beer going to be afterwards?
I haven't thought about it. What? I'm gonna have to go to Husky Sands and buy myself a nice sour beer. $20.
Go to the Grain Train.
Organic beer. It smells good. So next week when we're getting into it, you know, we're really going to focus on these main selling points of beer and really building up the confidence. And also, you want to know what? Well, let me ask you guys, because we're planning on having this kind of exam here, I guess, with this little mini test. And what we've discussed in the last 4 weeks. Would you rather just kind of do like an overall review of it, kind of in time, with selling points? You know, like you consider we can review this, and when you're talking to your guests about it, kind of convert it. Because when I'm reading, you know, all this chemistry of beer, the alpha acid percentages, and the isomerizations, and the international bitter units, I'm not going to go say that to a guest. Because the guest, you know, really the attention span, I don't know if you ever noticed when you're talking to a guest, but when you're sitting there trying to talk to them about descriptive tendencies, some of them are engaged, other ones are just with their menu, not even listening to you, so why even waste the time? You have to kind of figure out how to summarize it into terms. And really that's going to take a key kind of
Well, that's why I
attention on
asked
your
so many
point to figure out to
questions
read a guest.
about generalizations and just layman terms and things, because that's how I better understand things, that's how most guests better understand things.
Right.
Unless you get the PQR.
Exactly.
Unless you know numbers and percentages.
If you ever notice too, you know, kind of going back to the different hop varieties between West Coast hops and European and noble hops, if any of you ever had any guests from Europe, there, they had, say, a hanging drink, this beer tastes like fruity, why is this beer so fruity tasting? You ever notice that?
Because they're water.
Well, it's also due to the fact because the hops they're used to, and if their styles of beers are going to do it as well.
They call it mash.
Yeah.
What they say is, you know,
They call it what?
mash.
Mash?
Well, that's in their accent. They'll say, "Oh, that's some good mash." Just means it's just
Like
a
the
good
hop?
beer. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what they call it.
So does anyone have any questions about anything?
You're saying the next session you'll do like...
Do a little review if you want.
Actually,
We'll stress the importance to everybody to come to the next one, especially for those that have
I
not.
wouldn't mind doing a half and half, like.
We can tie each one thing. Like we'll talk about the ales. We'll go over the ales compared to lagers again, and we'll talk about the selling points to define those. You know. Then we'll talk about the specific styles again. The pale ales compared to your brown ales, your stouts compared to your porters. Those kind of things we compare to those selling points, and we'll focus more on like when you're tasting it. that'll be something else that I'll try to include next week is I'll try to bring, we'll go through our actual beer menu. I'll buy a bottle of beer for each one, we'll actually taste it, and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
What are you looking for in those beers? The different flavors that you get. Maybe a little bit of food pairing as well with it. So you can, someone, I'm looking for a hoppy beer. Yeah, it's nice to have the hang frame if that's going to be something that you don't have to necessarily resort to. Or if someone's looking for something, I'm looking for something a little hoppy, a little bit malty. If I'm looking for, Belgian pale, or if I'm looking for something uniquely different, like, I want you to be able to taste the beer, something that you really like, that you know how to tell me. Like, wonder what? This one's my favorite. Like when we had that ginger in the rock. Freaking favorite beer from Shorts. And somebody asked, what's a good beer? That one.
Is that a seasonal beer or no?
Mr. Mitchell, could you, just a thought, I mean, I could do it on my own, but, it'd be cool if you could make some type of, printout that has Michigan breweries and a couple examples, or like the location of the brewery, because I get a lot of questions from people about, do you have any of this brewer company's type beer here, or the exact opposite, where exactly is this brewing company from? Those are the most questions I have, because people just simply want to drink Michigan beer.
Right. Well,
and sometimes I get,
I do know if I'm featuring a beer, I usually describe, or I usually say where that brewery's from. I mean, like on our menu right now, Founders from Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could easily just do it on my own, but it would be nice to have like just some summarized kind of like what.
Well, I'll see if I have time to come up with something like that. I mean, at least the big ones. I mean, you know where Bell's is at. You know Bell's Brewery?
Kalamazoo.
That's where that's the same thing like Shores Breweries in Elk Rapids, but
Their factory is.
they're based in Bel Air first, yeah.
Well, no,
Shorts.
Shorts.
So I was talking about Shores.
Kalamazoo probably in Bel Air. Check out my house. You know who's the sponsor of the spokesman? Tom Brady.
What's that?
So do you feel like that much closer to him now that you're wearing Tom Brady's boots?
I didn't know that.
You're gonna stroke his wiener.
Just out?
Edit that part out.
You're the one who asked, you're the one yelling, oh man, you're stroking me, Tom Brady. I hear that subtle whisper after it. Please stroke me, Tom Brady.
You should say no homo as we say.
No homo.
I know bullshit.
Well, that's all we'll talk about hops today.
Do you use sheets from the other,
I have to retype them on the front.
or does anybody else have them?
What?
Use sheets from that couple?
I have the last one.
Yeah, I just have
Hey, Logan. Hey, Logan.
Look at Logan, wave to the camera. Wave, say hi.
Where's that?
Our special sound effects today.
Where's your rat? Logan!
Logan.
Where's rat named
Oh, and
Daddy?
I thought about,
Oh, what'd you do?
I misspoke. You were.
Go on.
On that, kind of like the whole timeline of what goes on.
Mom's named
Boil
Daddy.
it,
Where'd you
keeping
go?
up the acid. The yeast enzyme.
Yeah, I asked him to name his rat, and he said to name it. He said he wanted to name it Daddy.
Thank you, sir.
I tried George, I tried Bob, I tried Frank, but
I
it was
appreciate
Daddy.
your time again.
Mom's named Daddy.
Like I said, even though you guys, that world of you look to me, I'm still an amateur at this too. I could stand corrected on many things. So, I mean, and that's also, if you guys come in,
Hi, Daddy.
just realize
That's good for a lot of your
That's what it is.
If it's isomerization.
That's what it is.
It's beta being converted now.
There's so much more chemistry in beer than I had originally had thought. I think.
Yeah, that's why when those people were packing the beers trying to explain it to me, I was like,
Can I just drink that
I'm like, hey, it's all Greek to me, but now that you know it, you have a way higher respect for the people who actually try it in their own homes.
Oh, I think it was I hate chemistry. Now I'm reading about it again in a sense.
We have to make beer in my microbiome.
We got my biology class, it was a chemistry class, we got to take a goldfish and stick it in liquid nitrogen.
Oh.
And then put it back in the bowl and watch it thaw.
That's his father-in-law.
Just shattered.
There was a kid in the class after doing it, he was like, BAM!
My sister's father-in-law is the chemist Dr. C up there.
You, him, and Tom Brady all get together and stroke each other?
Where did that go?
Tom Brady, I love you and your Uggs, you feel so good.
Yeah. Couldn't believe it. Bob Broadcast number.
Well, I don't know what though, I won't leave you hanging. I bought a pair of deck shoe this summer.
You, man, you wear sheepskin.
Actually,
You heard sheep.
Well, I went to that regatta boat party in Harbor or whatever, and I went with this guy Spencer. You guys remember Spencer?
You went with Spencer?
He invited me, and I was like, whatever. He's
Oh, and you're talking about Tom Brady stroking me, and you go to a shoe show with a gay guy.
It's not a shoe show. It's a party after the big boat race.
Oh, the what boat race?
The regatta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regatta.
Regatta.
Then you got something there.
But either way, Krista, there's a lady needs a place that you go water. Either way,
Thank you.
he's like, wanna go? And yeah, he's gay. I don't care. He's my friend. But he knows a lot of good-looking women. So I was like, I'll go. But he's like,
We're politically correct here. We love gay people.
he's like,
I do.
Yep.
You can't wear jean shorts and your white Nikes because that's what I was gonna wear. I'm like, why not?
You have Jorts, man?
Yeah, dude.
Bro, you can't
And I'm a firm
He
supporter.
was really offended by the fact that we told him we couldn't wear those.
I wear them all the time.
But he
Don't
wears
wear
a
them.
white t-shirt and white tennis shoes.
The white tennis shoes are fine, the white t-shirt, but you can't.
No, it's not even a t-shirt. It's a nice white Nike polo.
I'm not gonna have that.
It's shiny. I was gonna wear that. But they're like,
Real blue.
That's all he gets
that's way exact. We're the summertime, but they're fresh.
No.
But they're like, you can't wear it.
Press them and.
No! You gotta keep it crisp, baby.
Where were you born? You weren't born on the East Coast?
I was born in Detroit.
Great.
But
Oh,
anyway, he told me I can't wear them, so I went out and bought these deck shoes that I didn't realize when I bought them they were Uggs. I haven't even worn them, they're just sitting in my closet. So I was selling
Yeah,
them
but you
for
got
$30.
a million pairs of shoes. Typically like one.
It's not, it's not a lot. They're all clean. Go on.
Sheepskin.
These aren't sheeps.
You are.
What's wrong with sheepskin?
Yeah. If you want, I'll sell you. Hey, that style of shoe is totally something you would wear, so I'm not gonna wear it. I'll sell it to you for $30. I bought it for $50.
I already bought work shoes today.
I'm just telling you, I'll buy you my summertime Uggs that I'm never gonna wear. Yeah.
Really?
Where are they lined with? Are they lined with the wool stuff?
Just give these to me.
Are they lined with the wool stuff? What? What size are they?
10 and a half.
Give me a late Christmas present. My early birthday present.
Give me, no, that's just for $50. Give me $30. You can have them.
Cheap.
Well, I bought them on the sidewalk sale, and I had a $20 gift certificate because I did the fashion show.
Wow. It's just the plot thickens. You're doing fashion
Sheepskin no. What? It's been ended. We're talking about Uggs right now. Are you still taping them?
Yeah.